And here I am. How are you doing, guys? I hope everyone is fantastic. Thank you very much for joining in on this live stream. Um, First of all, I'd just like to say that I hope that most of you guys have already got my Mentour Aviation app. I know I say this on every one of my live streams, but I am going to take more and more questions from it. And today I run my first test where I would be doing live streaming straight through the app. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that in the future. I will still be doing these YouTube live streams for all of you guys, obviously. But in the future, I'm hoping also to do some live streams exclusively for people inside of the app. So make sure that you've downloaded completely free. So let's see, how are you doing all of there? I can see Jorksen, Brenda, Pancake, you're all here. Great to see you. Hi from Spain. We're having absolutely fantastic weather here, which is why obviously tomorrow I'm getting on a plane and flying to the UK to do my week of sim duty. So let's just get straight to it. As always, guys, I'm using internet that is a little bit shaky. I'm actually using my wife's mobile phone as a hotspot this time because I'm basically running on internet fumes. So if the stream would stop for whatever reason, it's because the internet has been running out. Stay tuned, I'm going to try to get it back up and running again. Right, so Bohemian Wave Rider is asking if I'm a captain. Yes, I am a captain. I am a captain. I'm a type rating instructor and a type rating examiner as well. I've been a captain for about 8-9 years now, and I've been flying for 15 years. So it's quite a bit of time now, but it feels like it's literally yesterday. I can still remember exactly how it felt to be a brand new cadet sitting there, you know, not knowing exactly what to expect from the line training captain and stuff like that. And I think that is essential to be a good instructor these days and to be a good line training captain. You do need to remember how it was to be a cadet, because without that, it's very hard to instruct anyone. Right, like always, guys, if you guys want to help out pitching in for the channel, you can do that by using the super chat. I am guaranteeing 100% to answer all of the questions that pops up on the super chat. And as you see already, it can get quite crowded in here when it comes to questions. So if you have a specific question that you want to ask me, then use the super chat and I will endeavor to try to answer all of those super chat questions. Otherwise, use the Mentour Aviation app. I have the app up already and I will take quite a few questions. As you can see, they're popping up already from the chat inside of the app. Right, let's see here. Yes, Batman. I hope you guys like that intro. It was just like a spur of the moment thing. I came home from work and I saw my kids playing around with the hoverboard and hover cart, and I decided to do that little intro. So I'm really glad you guys liked it. I'm not sure I can replicate something as good as that one because it was just so spontaneous. But guys, feel free to share that video, and if you want, I can just put it up as only that, you know, that little clip if you guys want to share that around, because I'm trying to build the channel as always, and whatever help I can get from you. And you know, I've found that funny clips works the best when it comes to spreading it. Cool, more questions here. Will you do any more funny intros? Well, I will definitely try, you know, if I can see something that is obviously funny. But I also have to take a little bit care about the channel, you know, the respect that the channel has. I can't make a fool out of myself. I have to keep it fairly. I wouldn't say not boring, absolutely not. But I can't be playing around with my work as a pilot or as a captain, because I am first and foremost a line training captain, and I can't have my my cadet laughing at me, you know, when I meet them in the crew room. It's not, I'm not a clown, but I will do what I can to come up with funny stuff to do. Right, more questions here. Tips for a school freshman who wants to become a pilot. Yeah, so this is fairly normal. These questions pops up from now and then, and I always say the same, which is you guys have to concentrate on making you know, good progress in school. If you can concentrate on natural science subjects like mathematics, physics, and obviously the English language, that is good for you. Try to get those subjects down to a T. And otherwise, just make sure that you get good grades, because if you get good grades, it'll be more likely that you can get into the schools you want. And subsequently, the flight schools might be looking into your grades as well. Me, for example, I went to a government-sponsored program in Sweden, and the only chance I had to get into that program in the first place was to have absolutely perfect, flawless study records. So that's how I got into it, and that. It only happened by working hard, guys. Like there's no way around it. You're gonna have to work your butts off to both to get the grades and then get into the flight school, and then during the flight school, if you're doing an integrated course, it's gonna take like 18 months potentially, and you're gonna work really really hard on. So the more used you are to having good study technique, the easier that will become. What is a type rating? Well, a type rating is a specific course for a specific aircraft that is heavier than 5,700 kilos, right? So if you're gonna fly a bigger aircraft, a bigger, yeah, just a bigger aircraft, basically, you can expect that you have to do a type rating for it. And the type rating is going to be mostly, I mean, it can be done in the aircraft as well, but in most cases it consists of a ground school course first, where you learn all of the technical systems in the aircraft, and you start looking a little bit into the standard operating procedures. And after that, it will be more or less 10 to 12 sessions in a simulator, where you go through all of the emergency equipment, all of the different emergency procedures that you need to know, and the normal procedures, obviously, and then finished off with the skill test. Okay. So that is essentially a type rating. And then in order to lift the type rating, you normally need to do what's called a base check as well, base training, which is at least 6 touch and go landings in the real aircraft without passengers on board. Cool, guys. So let's see. There's loads of questions coming up now. As always, guys, like I said, use the super chat if you can, and because I won't be able to answer all of the questions from the normal chat. I'll take a few questions from the Mentour Aviation app here as well. Salve, I will start my flight training in 2 months in Flight Safety Academy in Florida, but my question is there a difference between training in Europe and training in the USA? And how much is that? Okay. And because I can't see the rest of the message, unfortunately. Well, there are probably some differences, and the FAA and the EASA licenses are not exactly the same, but to be perfectly honest, they're all under ICAO rules, so there will not be too much differences. There might be some small differences in training, but I wouldn't expect them to be much. However, if you need to move your licenses from America over to to Europe, you are still going to have to do a bit of flight training, and in most cases also the ATPL exams again. I'm actually going to do a video. I did a interview with a flight school that does these kind of conversion courses. So I'm going to send that interview out. It's a little bit lengthy, but it's good for you guys, especially people who want to go from USA over to Europe, or coming from Asia going to Europe, just to so you know what to expect. More questions from the Mentor app here. Mentor, do you ever go around? Will you ever do go around school video? Will you ever do sorry. Will you ever do a ground school video? Maybe in the future. Well, that depends on what you mean with ground school. As in, I am not. My role in this is not to do instructional videos for like initial ground school or ground school for type rating or something like that. What I'm here for is basically just share the knowledge that I've gained and my own views on what's going on in the aviation world and so on. So that means that it's unlikely that I will start doing ground school videos as talk about, effects of flight, how does a rudder work, stuff like that, because frankly, I wouldn't be too great at that. There are people who are much better than me when it comes to actually instructing the foundations of piloting. I am more into the type rating part, which is the last part of your training, and also how it's like to be, flying, what you should be thinking about when it comes to your commercial side of your license, your career once you have gotten your first job and so on. Cool. How to get into an airline? Yeah, that is the big question, isn't it? So there are many ways of getting into an airline. There are in Europe at the moment. There's quite a few companies that are looking for low-hour cadets, In that case, you just have to get your licenses, your MCC course, and so on, and then you just apply with your minimum hours. All right. In the States, it's harder. You need to have 1,500 hours, and in that case, you might have to work as a flight instructor for a while to get the hours up, and then be able to apply. And then you basically just send out as many applications as you possibly can, guys. All right. And I cannot overemphasize this. There's no question about, well, I want to fly this aircraft, or I want to do that specific type, or I want to do. No, 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 no. No. You need to get your butt out there and find the jobs. Okay, and it doesn't matter if that means that you're going to be flying an Antonov AN2 as your first job. If someone pays you to fly it and it's a safe and good operation, you need to do it. You need to get the experience there. That goes for airlines, especially airlines. You know, of course, you cannot apply for airlines that are considered unsafe. But then again, there are not too many of them. You know, most airlines that are operating, especially in Europe and the US, are perfectly safe airline to fly for. So if they're operating Boeing aircraft, great. If they're operating Bombardier, great. If they're operating Airbus, great. It doesn't matter, right? This is a question I get all the time. Can I choose between a Boeing and an Airbus? And the answer to that is no. You can't. You might have a choice. If you get into an airline which has several types, they might ask for your opinion, what you would like, okay? But at the end, they are just going to put you on whatever type that you need, especially from the beginning. When you gain experience later on, if you're coming out and you have 10,000 hours and you have maybe flown several types, well, then you might have a choice. But in the beginning, no, not really. John Schumacher, you are the first one in the super chat. Thank you very much. What is the purpose of eyebrow windows? Yeah, that's a great question, actually, John. The eyebrow windows were there back in the good old days when we actually used star navigation. Okay, so the eyebrow windows on the 737 were used so that you could take your sextant and you could measure the distance between stars and the horizon and figure out where you were based on star navigation, which of course we do not do anymore. So that's why the eyebrow windows have completely disappeared. You won't see them on any new 737s, and I think that in our fleet of 400 aircraft, there's no one left that has any eyebrow windows. So that was the purpose for them, and it's not used anymore. I'll take a little bit of coffee, guys. Guys, by the way, if you guys are interested in like Mentour merchandise, like these cups, I'm actually gonna do a little bit for the company. I'm gonna do a few batches of cups that works in an airline environment, as in screw cups that are the only ones that you're allowed to use in a 737, because there's been so many people spilling coffee, so you need to have a screw cup. I'm going to do a few of those, and I'm going to do a few of these cups probably as well, and some lanyards and stuff. And on mentor360.com, my homepage, which is very seldom used at the moment, I will have them there. So guys, if you're interested in getting one of those, then they're not out there yet, but they will be in a few weeks. All right, so hopefully that will be interesting for you. Cool. How do you know the route of flight in the sky? Yeah, so we have a flight plan that has been filed by our company. We have people who are working in a flight planning department, and they map out the flight that we're going to fly. Most of the time, it's the same kind of route every single day for the same flight number. Sometimes there's some small differences depending on if there's ATC strikes and stuff. But then they file that, and when it's approved by our traffic control, we get the flight plan, and we enter the flight plan into our FMC. And if you want to know how that is entered, then you can just go and check out my I did a video on a complete FMC setup, so you can see exactly how I've done, how I entered the route and how we check the route. And if you want to see how we work together to check the route, then you get the complete setup playlist that actually costs a little bit of money in the app, okay? But it only costs like less than a hamburger, $3 or something. And then you get to see the entire setup from when the aircraft is dark and cold until we are taxiing out for takeoff. All right, and there will be new videos coming up in the app as well, showing how we do the takeoff, how we do the climb out, how we do the cruise, how we do the descent, and how we do the landings and stuff like that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it in 360 though. What do you think, guys? Do you think I should do it in 360, or are you more interested in seeing the videos in normal 2D, maybe with a bit of insets and stuff like that? Just let me know, because I'm I'm planning now how to do it. It's obviously easier to make the normal videos, but you can't see everything at once in that case. Right, Ilan Didri, thank you very much for supporting in the super chat. So Christopher Bark, very nice to see you both here contributing. Thank you very much. If you had questions that you wanted to put in but it didn't work, then you just send me those questions on the Facebook page. Okay, because sometimes when you type this in, it doesn't come out as a question, but I will answer your questions on the Facebook page. All right, so just send me a private message there. Right, more questions. So 360, you like 360? That's good. So Milton wants normal. Is there a shortage of Is there a real shortage of pilots in Europe? Well, that depends on how you see it. Okay, there's a shortage of trained, experienced pilots that are becoming captains. That's the fact, right? It's very hard to find for airlines. The low-fare airlines, for example, are struggling at the moment to find people to fill the captain's seat. Okay, because people with experience to become captains, they run off down to the Middle East, to Emirates, or to Etihad, or to Qatar, or any of those. Okay, or they fly to competitors that pays better. So that's where the shortage is. The shortage is in experienced first officers and captains. All right, there's not a huge shortage of cadets, but there is a shortage in a while that's coming because there's less and less people being trained to be pilots. Okay, because the terms and conditions have been lowered over many years, so people have been starting to look, less people looking at becoming pilots than they were before, and they're not willing to pay the amount of money that is costing to become a pilot. Okay, so less and people are being trained while the airlines are buying more and more aircraft, and they need to fill these aircraft, and this is what we're seeing the beginning of now, that they're starting to have problems filling those seats. All right, so yeah, there's going to be a shortage. Now, there is still, and I'm guessing that some of you guys that are watching this out there probably have your licenses or have been applying for years and you're not getting any response. All right, so I'm not saying that it is a shortage, which means that everyone out there is going to get a job, because that's not how this works. All right, you have to continue to try. But in some cases, there are reasons that people don't get the job, unfortunately. And that's why I've been saying from the beginning of this channel that it's really important that you do your assessments, like your psychometric testings, your ability testings before you start your flight training. Because in some cases, if you can get through your flight training, but then when you do those tests for airlines, you might not be able to get through that, or you have a lot of failed ATPL exams. And those are the kind of things that the airlines are actually looking at before they call you for an interview. So make sure that you spend a little bit of time. And this is also something, this is a really important thing that I wanted to bring up, but I always forget, is that don't pressure yourself into a too tight schedule when you write your ATPL exams. Okay, when you do your exams, make sure that you put them into groups. If you can choose 2 or 3 different times to do it, make sure that you make the groups into subjects and groups of subjects that you can actually get through. Okay, so that you don't end up with pressuring yourself into trying to get everything done at once, and then you have 1 or 2 fails. Okay, because the airlines, they do look at how many first-time passes, or that you have only first-time passes. If they have a group of 500 people applying, well, then what they will normally do is they check which ones of those have first-time passes, because it's likely that those guys will be able to get through the type rating without a problem on the theoretical part as well. And then once they've filled that, then they will have a look at the groups that don't have all first-time passes. So I'm not saying that all airlines do this, right? Depending on how much pilots they want, and some airlines might value other things more. But I know that some airlines do this. So, take your time. Don't pressure yourself into a situation where you face an unnecessary fail. Okay. Having said that as well, is that once you do get your first job, then that doesn't matter. All right. Once you have your first job and you have you're just starting to get experience, no one really cares about your ATPL exams anymore. All right. It's just to get that first job that really people are looking into it. Ilan Ridri is continuing on the super chat. Thank you very much, Ilan. Vilken linje ska man välja för att bli pilot? So that's in Swedish, and we're asking what kind of gymnasie line, like what kind of schooling that he should be going through in order to become a pilot. And what I can say there is that in Sweden, if you want to go through the government sponsored program, you should be looking at naturvetenskaplig first of all. And I do think that in some cases you can go through samhällsvetenskapligt as well. But naturvetenskaplig is the one that you should be going for in most cases, because it does include things like physics, a lot of mathematics, English, natural sciences, which kind of connects to the pilot work, right? That's what I did. So that's what I would suggest. All right. So Håkon Boen from Norway, I guess. Heard of Pilot Flight Academy in Norway? Is it good? Unfortunately, I haven't. All right, but what I can say is most of the Scandinavian flight schools are very good. It's a very competitive market. So if you're not good, you're not going to get any students. And especially if it is government sponsored, which it might well be in Norway, then you don't have to worry. Then it is good. All right. And the prices in Scandinavia also tends to be much more kind of down to earth than it would be in the UK, for example. The prices tends to be somewhere in between what you find in Eastern Europe, Central Europe, and UK. So the prices is somewhere in between. And if you want to check, there's quite a few flight schools in the Mentour Aviation chat now. If you put alpha.skavak.com with a C, Skavak with the 2 C's, then you will be able to talk to Stein, which is one of the managers for Scandinavian Aviation Academy, which I've been working a little bit with. And they are in the chat, and they will be answering your questions about that particular school. We can see if we can get someone from Pilot Flight Academy in Norway in there as well. If anyone's listening here and you go to that school, then contact me later on through the app. There is a submit feedback feature in the app. Just send me an email, say that I work in that school. I can get you into contact with someone that might be able to answer questions about it, because that's what I want. I want more schools, more experienced pilots to be in the chat to answer questions from everyone. Right, Omicron and Hege Productions. Could you explain, please, what happens exactly when an aircraft goes supersonic by accident or intentionally? From Andrew. Oh, yeah. That doesn't happen very often, fortunately. An aircraft that is not designed to go supersonic will probably not fare very well when you start getting into the transonic and supersonic area, because it's not built to withstand the shock waves that are created and the aerodynamic changes that comes with transonic and supersonic flight. All right, so there is something called Mach buffet and Mach tuck. Okay, the Mach buffet comes when basically modern airliners. Wait, I'm just going to get some coffee here. So modern airliners almost always has a small transonic layer when we're flying in cruise speed. We're flying at 80% of the speed of sound, and the air that's going over the upper part of the wing is actually accelerated a bit, so it accelerated into the transonic area. Which means that we have a little bit of a shock wave on the wings, and you can actually see it. That's something quite cool, actually. You can, if you look out of the wings when you're a passenger, and you're sitting there, and you kind of look down the wing, and you move your head a little bit forth and back, you will see that there's kind of lines, okay, like vertical lines following the length of the wing. Those are actually the shock waves. You can actually see them, but it's very, very, they're very, very thin, and it's hard to see, but you can see them if you look for them. Now, those are not dangerous, okay? But if the transonic area becomes too big, okay, we will start to notice that by the shock wave building up. And the shock wave basically is built up because when you're in the subsonic area, when the wing is coming, then because it is in the subsonic area, it kind of has a little bit of a pressure profile ahead of it. So the air can kind of escape out of the way and move over the wing. As we go into the transonic area, that doesn't happen. So the air starts to be compressed. Okay, so the air doesn't have time to get out of the way, so it started to compress instead and start a shock wave. That shock wave in itself creates a drag, and it basically loosens up the flow of the wing. So we start to get buffeting, which is, it's kind of like turbulence. You can feel it throughout the aircraft. that is not good. If you get muck buffeted, you're very, very close to some really, really bad news. All right. Then what happens as well is because of this, you will always have the gravitational center. The point of gravity will be in the same place. However, depending on where that shock wave happens, the lift center of lift is going to move. Okay, so in this case, it will move so that the aircraft nose pitches down. It's called a Mach tuck. Okay, Mach tuck will move the nose down, and of course, as the nose moves down, the aircraft will accelerate, and it will get even worse. Right, so we might get into a situation where you completely lose control of the aircraft until it gets so bad that because of the forces exerted on the wing, it will basically break the aircraft apart. And this is what they were afraid of before we managed to get through the sound barrier, because aircraft would just fall out of the sky when they hit that. But they thought it was an actual physical wall. But then they managed to build, the wings became more and more swept which helped. And the wings of a supersonic aircraft is completely different than from a sub and transonic aircraft. So if you go into if like your question was, what happens if you do this, and would you ever? In an airliner, we would start to get what's called a clacker. Sounds like that, and it will show us that, okay, so now you're really, really close to bad stuff. Do something, add drag, do something. All right, and yeah, if you don't, the aircraft will not survive it, basically. So we can't handle, and a 737 cannot fly supersonic. It just doesn't work. All right, I hope that answers your question. Cool. So next question on the super chat. Like, guys, as you can see, there's more and more people using the super chat. So if you have more questions, then send them into the super chat. Do you have time to be a father as a pilot? Yeah, I do. Fortunately, I do. That is one of the really good things with working for my airline. It means that I'm getting home every night. Well, now I should say that now from November, I will be in the simulator every single week. You won't see much flying pictures from me on Instagram anymore, unfortunately, because my base is downsizing over the winter, which means that I am going to have to spend more time in the simulator, because that's where I'm needed. So I'm going to be in different sim centers all over Europe during the winter. And that will, of course, have a little bit of a negative effect on my family life, because that means that instead of coming home to my own bed every night, I'm going to have to be in a hotel somewhere in Europe during my working week, and then I will be coming back home. But normally, when I'm flying, then I will always come back home. So I always have time for my family. So you do have time. Now, obviously, me trying to run this YouTube channel and doing the applications and Facebook and Instagram as well takes away a little bit of the time. But I don't let that. I would shut this channel down if I thought that it was hurting my family life. It's as easy as that. My family life, and I would quit this job if I thought that it was hurting my family life as well. Because you have to realize that in this world, there's only so many things that are important. And the important things are your family, and it's your friends, people around you that care about you. You know that those friends you have that whenever you want to call them, even if it's in the middle of the night, no matter how long it's been since you've seen them, they will always pick up and you will always have a good time. Take care of those. That would be my advice for today. If you have one of those, call them tomorrow. Tell them how much you appreciate them, because you don't have many of those. Those are the ones that you have to take care of. Jobs will come and go, other things will come and go, but those won't, right? So take care of those. Casey Monson, thank you very much for helping out in the super chat as well. So let's see if we can take some more question here. One works to live, not live to work. Exactly, that's what I was saying. How do engines work inside? A jet engine is basically picture a balloon. All right, picture a balloon. When you blow it up and then you let it go, it disappears. That's the reaction force. It's coming out air in one side, and when you have a action, you will have an opposite and equal reaction. So that's how it works. But a jet engine obviously is filling the air from the front, pushing it out the side to get that energy. going, and it's doing that by a huge fan. And then you have basically compressors, that is the air is being compressed in, and then you have an igniter and some fuel being added to it that heats the air up, that further expands the air obviously, and then it goes out, creating the energy needed to run the fan in the first place, and the jet, what's it called now? I'm losing words anyway. But that essentially is how it works. You know, I can't go into the specifics without preparing myself a little bit. But it's a fairly simple idea. It doesn't have that many movable parts. It has, and the movable parts it has are spinning, which is far better than, for example, if you look at the piston engine, where you have the moving parts going like this. In a jet engine, it's only spinning, and when you have spinning parts, it's less likely to break than the piston ones, which is why a jet engine is so reliable. The fewer movable parts it has, the better it tends to be. The less likely it is to break, which are also something that we like in the aviation industry. Right, more questions from the Mentour Aviation app here. Let's see if it's updating. There's loads and loads of questions coming up. By the way, guys, I really, really love doing this. I hope you guys appreciate these weekly live streams as well. I'm sure doing it. Right, more questions here. So, hi guys. Hello, do you or the first officer say cabin crew seat for departure? And is it correct that you get a noise when they reply to the attendant call? Yeah, so the one who seats the cabin crew down is always going to be the first officer, because the captain is always the one who's moving the aircraft on the ground in 737, because we only have the tiller on the left hand side. Okay, so the one who's seating the cabin crew for departure is always the first officer. The one who's sitting the cabin crew for landing is going to be the pilot monitoring. Okay, so the pilot flying is going to tell the pilot monitoring to seat the cabin crew, and the pilot monitoring is going to seat the cabin crew, which means that it can be both the first officer or the captain, depending who is pilot flying at the time. Okay, and we do get a ding. Yes, when they try to reach us, they will take the handset up, and they will press 2, and that will bring a chime up to us, and we will see that there's a little blue light saying that, okay, someone wants to talk to you from the back. We go over to service interphone, and we say hello, and we talk to them and see whatever they want. We do get a chime as well when they give us cabin secure. So it's a specific code they have to enter to tell us that the cabin is secure. We get that chime in the cockpit, so we know that the cabin is secure, so we don't have to call them back to verify that. All right, so I hope that makes sense. More questions then. Mentor, what is your opinion on the Spanish crisis? Yeah, no, I don't really want to talk politics here, okay? I do have a very strong opinion on this. Obviously, I'm married to a Catalan woman. I live in Catalonia. All my neighbors are Catalan, so I have a very good insight into what's going on inside of the Catalan community and how they see things. And I also see the external views, as since I'm not Spanish, I can take it a little bit from afar, and I can take in the arguments that the Spanish side has as well, and the international community. And I pride myself, and this is something I wish more people in the world could do. Okay, I wish that people could just sit down whenever there is a crisis like this, whenever there is a really strong difference of opinion. People could sit down, get as many facts as possible, try to relax, take a deep breath, and make some kind of sensible discussion about things. And this is what I was hoping that they would do between Spain and Catalonia as well. They could sit down and they could hash out the differences, and they could find some kind of common solution. Because whenever you have things where people have really strong opinions, you're going to get some really, really tough, hard feelings involved, and feelings are never good when it comes to decision making. All right, this is something that I've learned from my work as well in the cockpit, that if you get really, really heated feelings, it's unlikely that you're going to come to a really good decision. You need to focus on what is right, not who is right. Okay, and this, when it comes to the Brexit, I wish that people would have done that. I wish that people could have sat down and actually looked at the pros and cons and not talk about the immigrants stealing all of our jobs or doing this and that and this, which is not true, okay? If everyone would have just taken the facts and then made some kind of decision based on the fact, we would have a very different outcome. Same when it comes to the politics that's going on in the United States at the moment, and the same when it comes to the politics that's going on in Spain. All right, I'm not going to give you exactly what I think about this, but I do think that people should be taking facts, listening more to their to the opinions of the people who does not agree with them, because this is something that's happening a lot when it comes to social media now as well. A lot of people are only listening to what other people are saying that's saying exactly the same as them. All right, because you only befriend people that think exactly like you. You don't listen to people who don't think like you, which means that you will think that the whole world has your opinion and hence everyone else has the wrong opinion. This is extremely dangerous, guys, and I cannot overemphasize how dangerous that is. If that would be the case in the flight deck, if we were sitting there and we would have a problem and I would only listen to people who said exactly what I thought, I could as well fly by myself. When I fly, and I see something and I have an opinion on it, I tell that to my first officer and I say, listen, this is it. And then I start by asking, what do you think that this is? I'm not even telling him or her what it is I think, because I know that I'm in a position of strength as a captain, so I'm not going to put them predisposed into something. All right. So I ask them, right, how do you perceive this? Then I listen to what they say. And I listen to what they think and what information they might have. And in many, many cases, they bring up things that I have never thought about. Okay? Because they have a different point of view. They don't have exactly my point of view. They don't have my experience. In many cases, I then have to add my experience to it. But I always start by listening to the people that I am flying with. So that they will say, well, actually, this one, this might be this, you know, it might be due to this system and this system. And I might like, yeah, actually, good point. And then I would add my own experience to it, and then together we would come to a conclusion of what the actual problem is. This is how decision making should always work if you want to do it in a team. This is how politics should work, but politics are flawed, right? And that's all I'm going to say about that, and I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. Sean Reedy, hi Mentor, I recently watched a video of a Dash 8 landing and hitting a deer on the runway. Is there a procedure for this? What actions are taken? Yeah, there's not much procedures for it. You know, you probably won't want to hit the deer. You would, if you see that there's wildlife coming in close to the runway, you would probably go around, okay? Because you don't want to risk getting into or hitting a large animal like that, okay? There are hunters. This is why there's big fences around an airport. Well, one of the reasons why there are big fences around an airport, to keep the wildlife out. There are hunters specified to go in and hunt wildlife on airports as well. But anyway, so if I go in and I would get a wildlife warning, I would not land on the runway if there's a deer there, for example, because that could seriously hurt the aircraft. If I have already hit the deer, there's not much to do. I just have to make sure that I control the aircraft, to stop it where I can, assess any damage, taxi in, and then have my engineers assess the damage, just like a bird strike. And basically, small animal strike is the same procedure as for a bird strike. You taxi in with whatever configuration you had when you had the strike. So in the landing case, it's going to be the landing configuration. And you have the same configuration because you don't know where all of the pieces of the animal has gone, and they might be lodged inside of flaps mechanisms, for example. Then you would do a thorough inspection to look for any damage, and if there is any damage, there needs to be an engineer there to either fix it or assess it and see if it's workable or not. There are many, many stories about this. I have hit rabbits, I've hit birds. I haven't hit anything as big as a deer though, luckily. But I did have this one rabbit that I remember down in Murcia. I came in, and the rabbit isn't big, but they have really, really reflective eyes. Okay, so I came in down towards the runway at about 50 feet or so. I saw the rabbit, and the rabbit saw me, and he was staring. He was sitting exactly on the center line. All right, so sitting exactly on the center line, staring into the landing lights of this huge 737 coming towards him. And the rabbit is not big enough for me to do a go around. Okay, it's just a tiny little animal. So I just hoped that I would land and the nose gear would miss him, as we were kind of haven't touched it down yet. So then I landed, lowered the nose gear like normal, and I could just hear as I lowered the nose gear like, boop! I must have hit him square in the forehead, the poor rabbit. And I just remember that he was just sitting there staring. It must have been a terrifying way to go. A colleague of mine he hit a hedgehog at 300 feet up in the air. Okay, hedgehog. You know what a hedgehog is? It's one of those little animals with loads, thousands of spikes on them. So what had happened, and he did that because you always have to report when you have something like this. You do a bird strike report, right? Even if it's not a bird. So he did a report on this, and apparently what had happened was that he took off, okay, and it took off, and somewhere at maybe 500 feet or so, there was this eagle, and the eagle had taken the hedgehog and was flying with the hedgehog to go and have a jummy meal, okay. But the eagle saw the 737 coming and obviously thought, better get out of here. Let go of the hedgehog and ran for it. Okay. The hedgehog, who had the worst day ever that a hedgehog has ever had, was first taken by an eagle, and then released by the eagle, woohoo, and then hit by a 737. Okay, so bad day to be a hedgehog. A little bit funny when you write the report. Yeah, so those are the kind of things that can happen. Yeah, eagles apparently like hedgehogs. Well, they probably like all small animals, I would say. Right, what is the scariest thing that happened to you in your career? Scariest thing. I mean, I've had, like, I don't like flying into weather like I was flying into last week. You know, when you know on the forecast that you're flying into a hurricane, not great feeling. Scariest thing otherwise, like, you get very concentrated, you don't get scared, you get concentrated because you're sitting in the front and you know it's up to you. So I've had things like flap failures and medical emergencies where you know you have to act very fast and do things right. But really scary things, not really so far. So far, it's been not scary, okay. I've had weather that has been very challenging, and you have really bad weather of a large area that's not really nice. But, I try to put myself into a situation where I don't get scared. As in, if I see that it's bad weather, I take a lot of fuel, because fuel means a lot of time to decide, and you have a lot of options in case you can't land where you're going. You would get scared if you end up in a situation where you can't land and then you don't have proper amount of fuel to give you a lot of different options. Okay, so this is why when we see bad weather, we take extra fuel, and this goes for all airlines out there, guys. No matter what you've heard about what the fuel policies is in different airlines, airline pilots takes as much fuel as they need. And if an airline would ever tell an airline pilot that you cannot take as much fuel as you feel like, then the pilots will not work for that airline. That's as easy as that. So anything you've heard about airlines forcing pilots to fly with very little fuel and stuff is largely bullshit. All right, it's stuff that you should not listen to. There might be some truth to pushing that, not trying to take too much fuel when it's not needed, which might be true, but then it's not needed. It's when you're flying from a cavalcade origin to a cavalcade destination. In that case, you take the legal minimum fuel, because the legal minimum fuel still has enough fuel for you to go in, try, do a go around, fly to your destination, to your alternate, and then have another 30 minutes. So you have to understand, that when the press really likes blowing up these kind of things, but you have to understand what kind of fuel minimum fuel actually is, and under what circumstances it is supposed to be used. Have you met Captain Joe? No, I have not met Captain Joe, not in flesh. I have spoken to him, I've had Skype calls with him, stuff, but I have not met him in flesh. Mentor, what was that? Mentor, I really think that actually is a pressure. Yeah, I mean, no. The mind, like, you have to, and this is also something that I that I really want to take this opportunity to talk about, guys. And that is, there's a difference between, like, as an airline pilot, you have an obligation to fly as safe as absolutely possible. That is your only job. Your job is to be as professional as possible and as safe as possible. That's what we do. Okay. And then there will be companies that wants to make money, and they will want to try to make policies that saves them money. But a smart company never makes a policy that would endanger or risk anything, because the worst thing that can ever happen to an airline is an accident. Okay, it is the most expensive and the most horrible thing that can happen to an airline from a business point of view. Only from that. So smart companies do not put policies in force that would endanger anyone, okay? Because it would not only would it be completely wrong from a moral standpoint, it would also be very bad business. So this is what you have to understand. And if you ever feel that any individual, because an individual might pressure you even though the company might not want to, then you have to stand up to it. That's what you do. That if someone comes to me and says to me that you should be taking less fuel than what you're doing, I would say no. I take as much fuel as I think that is safe to do. That's it, and I don't even think twice about it. Okay, so and I'm not saying that that's actually happened. It's never happened to me ever. Right? I've never had a single one tell me that you're burning way too much fuel this month, or whatever. Never. Right? I can say that with absolute honesty. Have you ever wanted not to go to work? Of course, absolutely. You know, there are days that you don't feel like going to work. You know, maybe you're not feeling, well, basically when you're in a bad mood and you don't have the energy and you feel like I would rather be home, tucked into bed, especially on earlies when the clock rings at 10 minutes past 4 in the morning and you haven't slept well, you really feel like, I don't want to do this. But then you get up, you get a breakfast, you get your cup of coffee, and you get going. And it turns out to be quite a good day most of the days, right? But this is a job. You have to understand that what you see as a hobby now, or something that you see as a dream now, will become a job. And when you have a job, you will always have days that you don't want to feel like going to the job. You know, it's not harder than that. Right. Guys, more questions from the super chat. I'm going to have to end this soon. So if you have any questions now, send them in on the super chat. I have about 5 minutes more to go before I actually run out of battery on my wife's phone here. If even that. So we'll see when this actually cuts out. Mentor, what are your advices to best deal with the ego inside of a lot of people for having of the aviation business, like chief pilot, instructor, first officer, captain? Also, how to deal with your own ego, which prevents smooth and safe CRM in the cockpit. Yeah, you have to be respect. Okay, respect is the key word here. If you show your respect to people and you expect people to show respect back, there will never be any problem with CRM. All right, that's how it works. As soon as people respect each other, you will have good CRM going. And if you listen, you show respect. If you talk in a way that you respect the other, they will listen. All right. So it's not harder than that. I try to show respect to people, and when you do, people tend to show respect back, right? That's what I do to you guys. It doesn't matter what kind of questions you have. I will always respect you because I know that the questions are coming from a place of honesty. So I will always respect you, and so far I've only gotten respect back. So this is how that I tend to run things. I tend to run that like that in the cockpit, and I'm expecting people to do that around me as well. And yeah. On those words, guys, I think I'm actually going to round this off. It's been an absolutely awesome live stream as always. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Make sure that you, by the way, go into the, if you guys want to really help out the channel, okay, if you really want to continue to see great stuff coming up, then my Patreon page is where I'd like you guys to go in. And if you want to have a private one-on-one call with me, or like a Skype call, we can set that up. But I want to do that with my Patreons. So go into www.patreon.com/mentorpilot, and then you can sign up there and you can support the channel. You will also get to preview my videos, so we can have a little bit of chat about what's in the videos before I release it to the rest of the public. So do that if you want to continue to see the channel growing in the way that it's doing. They're doing a fantastic job on my Patreon site to make sure that I'm not sending out something that I shouldn't be showing you guys. But until next time, guys, I hope that you are taking care of each other. I hope you will have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are. And this is going to be basically me signing out. So, yeah, pretty much that's it. Take care, guys. Bye bye.